Hypothermia, that's the other half of this twofer. Head injury, hypothermia. Hypothermia you can take care of in the field. Um, what is hypothermia? Hypothermia is just a low body temperature, core body temperature. We all know, 98.6 Fahrenheit is what we all call normal. Hypothermia is defined as a core body temperature of less than 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Right? And wouldn't take that long necessarily if you're out in a very cold environment. Maybe you're wet, maybe there's a wind chill. Um, so the real reason we worry about hypothermia, I mean, there's lots of reasons, right? You can have frostbite, you can lose digits, lots of other things. But in trauma, the concern is that hypothermia causes poor blood clotting. It's called coagulopathy. And if your blood doesn't clot, you're in a trauma, you're bleeding, that's a bad thing, right? Clotting is the body's way to stop bleeding. So if your body can't do what it's supposed to do effectively, bad things happen. All right, so we want to prevent hypothermia, and the way we can do that, right? We all know a lot of this stuff. We understand a lot of this. If you're cold, put on more clothes. If it's cold outside, get someplace warm, right? It's the same goes for when you're taking care of a casualty. So minimize environmental exposure. That just means if it's cold, get them someplace warm, right? Get them into a sheltered area. Get them into a warmed vehicle. If nothing else, get them behind a clump of trees so it breaks the wind, right? Remove wet or bloody clothing. We all know if you're the insulating factor of your clothes when they're wet for most clothing is not very good. So remove wet, bloody clothes, replace with dry clothes, dry blankets. Understand the difference between passive rewarming and active rewarming. Passive rewarming is simply using the body's own heating mechanisms to warm yourself, right? Your body's own internal furnace. So putting on an extra layer of clothing, getting into a sleeping bag, getting under a blanket. Those are passive. Putting on a hat because you lose a lot of heat from your head. Gloves, scarf, all those kinds of things, right? So passive versus active. Active is you apply heat. So externally apply heat. It can be something as simple as skin-to-skin contact with another warm body, right? We all understand that. You hear about people lost in the woods, and the guy that's suffering hypothermia, another person gets into the sleeping bag with them, skin-to-skin contact, they'll warm up, right? You got to be careful. Right now, in a trauma situation, I'm not that worried because you're probably talking relatively quick encounter here. But in a camping situation, that person that's providing their heat, they can become hypothermic too. So we got to be careful. Other ways of active warming, right? It could be warm water bottles. Warm water bottles put under the armpits, the groin, behind the neck. All those little chemical heaters that we have now, you exposed to air, they warm up, or you break them, shake them, they warm up. Ready Heat, basically, that's one of the brand names. Okay, I should talk very briefly what TCC talks about. TCCC pushes a couple of products. We use them in Afghanistan. We use the Hypothermia Prevention Management Kit, HPMK. I can't remember which company makes it, probably a couple. It's basically a sleeping, fancy rescue blanket made into a mummy bag, right? Reflective blanket with some ready heat type heating pads, chemical heating pads in it. Blizzard makes one as well, the Blizzard Survival Kit. Same thing. It's basically, if you want to make your own, essentially have a rescue blanket, one of those reflective survival blankets, and several of those ready heats, the bigger ones, if you can get them. Hot hands, several of those. It's the same idea. All right. And just know that if you're ever involved, if you ever get to the point where you're administering IV fluids or blood to a hypothermic patient or somebody that's on the edge and you're worried about them getting hypothermic, make sure you warm those fluids. Those fluids should be warm. They should not be delivered cold. You're just going to make the hypothermia, put the patient into hypothermia if they weren't, or make it worse. All right. If your casualty is awake, alert, uh, and they're able to swallow, and there's no risk of them aspirating, choking on what they're swallowing, you can give them warm fluids, right? Warm tea, uh, just warm water, warm hot chocolate, right? Avoid alcohol, avoid caffeine. All right. All right, that's it for today. All right, that was H, hypothermia and head injury, as far as the March PAWS acronym goes for the TCCC algorithm. And we'll continue the series with the PAWS part of the acronym, right? So March PAWS, move into PAWS for the next videos. And again, I'm Rich Kitchman with Strategic Self-Reliance and Defense. Thanks for watching. Watch this a couple times and get out and train with us. Take care.